welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Join me on today's video where we will be reviewing a watch from Heimdallr. Now I featured this watch on one of the AliExpress videos that I did just the back end of last year, and I've only just got it in my hand. So let's give you the watch reveal. Let's have a look at what it is. It is of course the Heimdallr Godzilla Homage. Now this watch was sent in to me by a subscriber of the channel and a member of the Facebook group that I've got, and that is Dave. So thank you very much, Davey boy. Appreciate you sending this watch in. I got in touch with Davey boy. He was showing off some shots of this watch, and as you can tell, he has also bought I think probably the best bracelet you can buy for this watch. It's a Uncle Seiko razor wire bracelet. Now I think one of the reasons why it looks so good is because the lug design of this Heimdallr, they are kind of integrated lugs. Not really, but you get the gist. Flat end. So this bracelet just looks so good on this watch, and look how malleable this bracelet is. So the Heimdallr Godzilla Homage, of course it is homaging the Seiko 65th anniversary Godzilla limited edition that they did. Here's a picture of the watch, and it is an incredible watch, and I have to give props to Heimdallr for reaching out, going for something so niche and producing that. And in hand, just looking at the pictures of the Seiko and this, I gotta say they've done an amazing job. It kind of reminds me of the Heimdallr Monster that they did. They did a absolutely fantastic job homaging that, let's say, and this is no exception. But I have to say one thing. I think, like myself, I'm assuming there's other people out there where when the pictures came out, you're not really sure. I don't think the pictures do this watch justice. In hand, it is such an amazingly beautiful watch. I think they've done such a great job so far. So yeah, I've had this in my possession for a few days, and I've been taking it out and about, and I gotta say it is something incredible. But there are a couple of issues as well. So let's go into the review. Let's start off with the specifications and give you dimensions, and then we'll look at a lot closer at this gorgeous dial, the smaller details and features that are present, and also look at a couple of QC issues that I've noticed on this. So specifications wise, as you can see, you've got a 316L stainless steel case. You do also have a flat AR coated sapphire crystal. The watch has 200 meters of water resistance with a screw down crown and a screw down case back. It's also got a ceramic loomed bezel insert, and the watch runs the Seiko Epson NH35 movement, which by now we know the standards of the NH35 and the specifications, so no need to mention that. Dimensions wise, this is a big watch. So the diameter is around 44.5 millimeters, and you've got a thickness of 13.5 millimeters and a lug to lug of 50 millimeters. An overall weight on this bracelet is around 156, although I suspect on the leather strap it will be just a bit lighter, but in hand you can definitely feel the case. It is very substantial, and as you can see, the dimensions sit on the large side. It is also worth noting that the bezel is slightly smaller than the case. It comes in around 43 millimeters. Not saying that will make much of a difference, but it does slightly help. So color options. So the watch comes in, I think, 4 or 5 different colors. They have recently added one, which is that coral blue. You've got a black, of course, this burgundy red, and you also get the 2 frost versions. You got the blue frost and the white frost. And although I do prefer the white frost style, I think this burgundy really does suit the watch as well. Of course, it's the closest thing to the OG as well. Now the price for this watch is around 145, but you can get it for around £137 or $186, and I think that is a really good price considering that this case is not available anywhere else. It's not a very common case, so more than likely Heimdallr have had to go and get this case made. So you've got tooling costs, especially with the handsets, and everything that you see here is unique to this watch. There's nothing that's been borrowed from other watches or factories, so I think price wise it is okay. Now, it's up to you guys to judge whether or not the price is justified for this watch when I'm done with the review. So let's take a closer look at this gorgeous dial. Now of course you can see it is a kind of a galoche dial. You can see these perfectly straight lines going around the dial, and I think this texture and dial game of Heimdallr is really up there. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Heimdallr's dial game is so far ahead of so many other suppliers. You don't really see this level of dials on any other watch, especially for this price point. This dial again has some unique features, and I'll use the word unique very loosely considering it is a homage. Just have a closer look at the features that you have here. You've got a mixture of applied and printed features. Now the only thing printed on this dial is of course the text above the 6, which states automatic 200 meters, which is in a silver color. Now below the 12 you've got the shark logo applied, polished of course, and you've got these really gorgeous hour markers. Now most of them are these triangular hour markers. You've got the loom applied in the center, and you've got highly polished chamfered edges. Now the one that does it for me, it has to be definitely that one at the 12 o'clock. I really love that hour marker. It's like a wider version. You know, you've got polished edges, chamfered edges, and with that loom in the center, that hour marker really does catch a lot of light, and it really does stand out on the dial. You know, it's like a main focal point, and I love the hour markers here. Now you've got a date window at the 3 o'clock with a polished chamfered date frame in silver, and you've also got a black chapter ring around the dial with red markers at the 5-minute intervals. Now the other thing which of course does stand out on this watch is these gorgeous hands. I've not seen these hands done by anybody else, and I know Heimdallr do really come out with some amazing handsets. As you take a closer look at the handset, you'll see the finer details present are just stunning. You've got a bead blasted finish with chamfered edges which have been highly polished. I love the shape of the hour hand, and that minute hand is such a sharp shape, again with the polished and chamfered edges, so cleanly done with the loom applied in the center. Now that seconds hand, really well finished. You've got a red outline on the back end of the seconds hand, very long seconds hand touching that chapter ring, fully bead blasted, but that finishing cap on top of that pinion, that really does finish it off nicely. And I think the hands of course are a perfect match for the dial. Going back to the homage, yes, they had something to copy, but the way they've done it is absolutely incredible. They've also gone with a ceramic bezel insert, again very similar to the original watch, and these markers, I'd say they're a shade of silver. They are also loomed, and what this bezel does is it changes the rotation of the numbers. So when you are looking at it head on, all the numbers face the same way, whereas on traditional dive watches you'll see the numbers do go upside down as you read it. Now before we go over to the loom shot, I do really want to highlight some QC issues that I've noticed here. Seeing as I took so many close-up videos, I couldn't help but notice them. If you look at the marker at the 9 o'clock, you'll see the loom has slightly overrun, so it's not a clean line as it is on the rest of the markers. Also looking at the numbers on the bezel which have been etched in, they're not the sharpest. I've seen much sharper numbers from Heimdallr before and other brands, but you'll see they're a bit the lines are a bit broken. It's not as clean as you'd like it, and some of them are a bit jagged, and that is under, you know, really close magnification. At arm's length it isn't something that you'd notice, but it definitely is worth mentioning. Now let's go ahead, check out that loom shot. And as always, Heimdallr do not disappoint on the loom. The loom is out of this world. You got loomed ceramic bezel insert, and also the loom on the hour markers and the hands. A lot of layers applied. Now the only criticism I'd have here is I don't like the fact that loom is on the counter end of the seconds hand. I would like it maybe just a slither on the tip so you can follow the seconds hand in the dark. And also I think the slithers of loom applied on the minute hand they do run just a bit short, giving you a much shorter appearance of the hands in the dark. However, these are very small issues, but yeah, the loom itself is great, and this will glow for a very long time. So let's move over to the construction on the bezel and the rotation. Now the bezel itself is fully round, highly polished, and I don't know how you've got so much grip on this for being such a smooth bezel. I've seen bezels with more grip than this but are difficult to grip, but this one I've had no issues. It is a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Decent resistance, nothing overly strong. Does line up, but it does have a fair bit of backplay. Now in terms of consistency, it's okay for about 3/4 of the rotation. When you do get back around, the sound does slightly change. The resistance or the feeling, the feedback that you get isn't as consistent. But overall, it's not a deal breaker at all, and Heimdallr haven't really mastered their bezels like St. Martin have, so you do expect a bit of inconsistencies when you have these watches in hand. Now let's turn our attention to this incredible case. I really love how they've done this case, and again it shows the capabilities that Heimdallr has. Now you do have an oversized crown coming in at 7.5 millimeters. There's no signage on there. It is polished at the end. You've got a really good grip, and of course that size helps grip this crown. Very positive pop. Yeah, perfect usage on the crown. Screws down really well. It's not as buttery smooth as I felt on other watches, but it isn't that bad as well. It's just slightly gritty. If you turn the watch around, let's have a quick look at the case back. As you can see, standard Heimdallr case back with some specification on there, that shark on there, and a screw down case back. So we'll turn away from that and focus back on the front of the case. So as you can see, there are a multitude of different facets, polished edges, brushed edges, and I love all the various angles that you can see here. Now I also like the different directions of the brushing that they've gone for. It really does make this case stand out, and I really like all the different angles and how Heimdallr have been able to capture this. So if you look at the tips of the lugs and the different facets present here, you've got multi-directional brushing present. Turn the case to the side and you've got this polished edge which goes around this portion of the case. There has been a lot of attention to detail when producing this case, and I absolutely love it. Great workmanship, great machining. I think the factory that did this has done a really good job. In terms of sharp edges, the only edgy feeling that I've got was from the tips of these lugs. Not sharp, but just slightly edgy. It's not something that's going to make you uncomfortable or that you'll feel while wearing the watch, but it's just worth mentioning. But everything else is very smooth, very nicely done. The brushing isn't as fine as we have seen from other brands out there, but it definitely does do the job. Gives it a really nice appearance. The watches like this Godzilla from Seiko are out of reach for the majority of people. You're looking at an £8,000 to £9,000 watch. Of course, this is where homages really do give you the value add, because this at £150 or £140 whatever is a mere fraction, and that's why it makes watches like this very understandable. Now let's have a look at the strap that the watch does come with. Now the strap here, of course, it is in line with the theme. You've got this textured leather strap. So for the most part, it is well made. It's finished nicely on the sides. You do have quick release spring bars and a overall decent texture. It is somewhat supple, slightly padded as well, and you've got your keeps here as well. Heimdallr have now started making their own buckles as well. So before they were using generic ones, and I really like again that attention to detail from Heimdallr. Polished sides, really nice lines, engraved shark logo on the end there. So that is pretty decent. Now this strap of course doesn't suit all the color options, but if you do go for the burgundy one, it is the perfect strap. But I would say this watch definitely needs a bracelet. As you can see here, Davy Boy's gone out and got himself an excellent bracelet for this, but you can use any other flat end link bracelet. The lug width is 22 millimeters, so you can go on AliExpress and choose literally anything you want, and it should fit really nicely on this watch. See how it looks on my 6.5-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized this bracelet. Anybody who knows about these bracelets know they're an absolute pain. I don't really have a good time when I'm sizing bracelets anyway, so I've left it the way it is. It is slightly loose for me, but you get the idea. Now it is a big watch, 45 millimeters in diameter, which isn't that much of a big deal. It just depends how the watch sits. Now because the case is kind of straight, the thickness isn't too bad. It does sit quite flush, and the lugs do flare out slightly, and at 50 millimeters, I think for a 6.5-inch wrist, it is about the limit before it starts to look silly and you get that overhang. So you know what, 6.5, 7 inches above, this would be perfectly sized. But I think it looks incredible on wrist. It's got a great presence, definitely a head turner, as you'd say, a talking piece. And I think just the color on the dial really helps this stand out so much. Very impressed with this watch. As mentioned, a couple of inconsistencies to expect with the bezel rotation and just those very few QC issues that I pointed out, bearing in mind I did zoom in quite close to the watch. But yeah, that's it. So if this is what you needed to go ahead and purchase the watch, then I will link the store in the description. Feel free to use those links, and I always appreciate everybody who does use those links. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next review.